If you want a deck that allows you to play the fearsome group of Han, Leia, Chewie, Luke, and Lando, but don't have the budget for all the top cards? Do you need a deck that plays in space and on ground equally as well? Do you like the Rogue One characters and troopers and you couldn't care less for Jedi? Then No Idea seems to be a deck for you. No Idea is an interactive deck based off the events on Scarif from the Rogue One movie. It's a fairly unique cast of characters with low deploy, high forfeit, and is a balanced deck on land and space. If left alone, it can do decent damage, and then attack opponents' non-battlegrounds with its cast of spies. While the deck has a few expensive staples in Walkling, Han, Chewie and the Falcon, Lando Scoundrel, and of course the defensive shield set, the rest of the deck is very cheap, using essentially the cheapest copies of Luke, Leia, and tons of virtual cards with common or uncommon underlying cards. The objective itself asks you to deploy Scarif, the Scarif Data Vault, with Stardust there, and the Yavin 4 Massasai War Room, of which you'll want to use the V version of this card. In addition to your starting effect that gives you your defensive shields, play Heading for the Medical Frigate as your starting interrupt. And the three effects you're going to want are Make 10 Men Feel Like 100, which gives you Rebel Spies, deploy bonus to Scarif, and once per battle, if you just drew a Rebel Spy for Destiny, you may retrieve one force. You're going to want Walkling, which will give you an additional generation +1, and once per game you can use 3 force to take into hand an effect that has no deploy cost and deploys on another card. You can also place the effect out of play at any time to retrieve a force. Lastly, you'll want Insurrection. Very important to use the original Insurrection from Endor and not the combo card, as the Endor version gives your rebels of ability less than 3 a forfeit bonus of +2. You have plenty of those. It gives you Ellis Hellrot protection, and once during each of your deploy phases, you may deploy 1 docking bay from reserve deck. You've got 2 docking bays here to boost your generation over the first couple turns. While the objective itself revolves around your substantial spy army, where the deck really shines is in its ability to deploy a Rebel starship once per turn, or a Scarif site here. The first thing you're going to want to try to get is the Tantive 4. The Tantive 4 has plenty of pilot slots to deploy whomever you have in your hand, and adds a force icon at the system it's deployed to, thus upping your generation. You're going to want to follow that up with the Bright Hope. If in the battle with another Rebel capital ship such as the Tantive 4, you can draw Destiny and subtract that amount from opponent's attrition and total power. You have plenty of cheap deploy, high forfeit spies that are also pilots here, but one of the people you want is actually a non-spy, Luke Skywalker, the original virtual card here from 2002. It hasn't been changed since then. Adds 3 to power, and if piloting at a battleground, you can retrieve 1 force. Controlling the system, force draining for 1, and retrieving 1 is a pretty decent combination that does make it worth stacking a few cards at the system, even if your opponent doesn't come to attack you. Filling out your deck with other compact starships will allow you to go chase your opponent in space, or punish them if the dark side tries to kick you off your own system. After turn 2, you're going to want to look to fortify the Scarif sites. While your spies might have trouble with a dark side doom stack of multiple walkers, or potentially all of your really bad guys such as Darth Vader, Emperor's Enforcer, Maul, and the Emperor, you still have enough firepower and enough ability text on your characters here to hold something on the ground. If your opponent went hard to the data vault, deploying multiple characters that looks overwhelming, simply think about fortifying the beach with your characters and trying to outdamage your opponent. Otherwise, let's say your opponent hasn't done anything yet, look to pick up Stardust while on your spy. During your control phase, if on your spy, present at a battleground you occupy, opponent loses 1 force. And move it to the beach. Your beach gives your spies in combat vehicles even a power +1 bonus, and is a juicy drain of 2. You'll find that your characters are a little lacking in of themselves, but combining characters together such as Leia Organa, Baze Malbus, Captain Cassian Endor, Saul Gerrera, my personal favorite, Endor Commando Team, will make it so that after stacking characters together, you've got a group that the dark side does not want to mess with, especially once you sprinkle in some of the other characters within the deck. Typically, you're looking to wholly outpower your opponent, or use Destinies to power and attrition to get your opponent to forfeit what they have. Fortunately, your Destiny isn't great, but multiple draws will get you better chances of drawing your high Destiny cards, especially if you track them. You'll find that after deploying to one side that you might not be able to contest Dark on their battleground. But fear not, you can use Projection of a Skywalker, which you can grab with Walkling, using the 3 Force as a once per game text. You can use Jin Erso. You can deploy as an undercover spy to a site. Or set up Menace Fades to kind of mitigate damage. You can see that you can cancel your opponent's drain bonuses if you control a battleground system and a battleground site. Once you've done that, you can use your cast of spies here. Keep in mind, the objective allows your troopers to be spies as well as base and chariot. So your cast of spies here, you can go attack your opponent's 9 battleground locations. You're going to want to use a little bit of evasion, such as Rebel Barrier, It's a Trap, and of course if things really go wrong, Hujix, to make sure that you don't lose too much force in the battles on these non-battleground sites. Well, they're very low risk and high reward for you because you're going to be able to drain at those sites if you hold them, and if your opponent comes chasing after you, you probably won't lose that much, and then they kind of don't have much benefit from controlling their non-battleground sites. As I mentioned a little earlier, the Destiny in this deck can be lacking, but some practice tracking will be able to get you the draws that you need in important scenarios. You do have some high Destiny cards between Double Agent, Sabotage, Antilles Maneuver, Wear Doom combo, something such as Relatively Unprotected with Large 7, and of course Hear Me Baby Hold Together. Hear Me Baby Hold Together and Antilles Maneuver can be played as use interrupts at any time, even if you don't really need to use the text to get them circled back into your deck and track for important draws. One other key player that you can use is Commander Vanden Willard, who acts as the 3PO in this deck. If Stardust is on your spy, you can place a card from hand and use pile to draw the top card of reserve deck. It allows you to track around key cards, keep your high Destiny within your deck, and kind of filter out some of your low Destiny draws. Don't forget, you can pull him by the Yavin 4 Massasai War Room V game text. But if you have him there alone, you might want to hold a Double Agent in hand just to make sure that your opponent doesn't come down with a spy and beat him down. Otherwise, you can probably put him with your Doom stack, either on space or on the ground, to keep him safe and keep his text of circulating high Destiny cards going for your deck here. One other high Destiny card that some people like, I don't have in this deck, but some people do enjoy it, is the Admiral's Order Taking Them With Us. Of course, all Admiral Orders have a Destiny of 6, which is really great. But this one's particularly useful for the bottom 2 lines of text here. At sites related to systems you occupy, your non-pilot warriors are deploy -1, defense value +2, and forfeit +1. You have plenty of those in your deck, so you can make things deploy for really cheap and give it some additional defense value bonus to your characters on the ground. The deck can struggle a little bit until you flip, but once you flip, by controlling 2 Scarif locations, all of your spies are defense value +2. And once per turn, you can place a Rebel in your Lost pile out of play, either to make a regular move, which is really nice to get some additional force drains in sometimes during your control phase, or cancel an attempt to target your non-undercover Rebel spy with a weapon. So that'll often keep your spies from getting sliced with lightsabers or fired with a shot with a blaster, which is really nice. If you don't have that, you should be looking for Antilles Maneuver V. You see there's for remainder of turn, opponent must use 1 force to fire a weapon, and that often especially during the early phases of the game, will prevent your opponent from firing weapons against your low defense value characters. You're going to want to watch out for Vader, Emperor's Enforcer, who could blank nearly any one of your character's game text. Agents of the Black Sun and Bring Him Before Me can be tough matchups for this deck, as Luke can't be piloting in space against those objectives. Alien decks that use Scum and Villainy, you'll want to park Han, Chewie, and the Falcon at the Scarif system, and find you've got a lot of guts coming here to blank Scum and Villainy's retrieval. Regardless of the matchup, the deck will be able to battle and attack nearly any of your opponent's locations on ground or in space, and has enough resiliency to keep you in a game, especially with the retrieval with Luke Skywalker V and 10 men being able to retrieve whenever you draw a spy in battle, or once per battle whenever you draw a spy. You'll find that the space package for this deck can be easily tweaked to suit your specific tastes, and the cast of characters is unique to this deck, so you'll get to play a lot of cards you wouldn't find in other light side decks. I hope you enjoy and good luck!